Thank you for being with 95.1 Nigeria Info, and welcome to BuhariMeter, a program which is brought to you by Center for Democracy and Development with support from Osiwa. And BuhariMeter has been on radio for over 2 years now, about 3 years since this administration came on board, assessing the administration, following up on their campaign promises, their manifesto, and seeing how well they are holding up to their own end of the promise and commitment made to Nigeria when they came into office in May 2015. And today we'd focus on one very interesting aspect not necessarily this administration. It predates them when we're talking about freedom of information, the act which was at least centered to in 2011 by Goodluck Jonathan. Since then, well, a lot of people have been asking how effective has it been, what's the practicability of it, agencies, parastatals and government organizations opening their books, opening their records and divulging some of this information. Let's not forget that Amnesty International, in their recommendation, when Transparency International, when they released the last corruption index, some of the recommendation was a bit more freedom of information for transparency and accountability. And I think that's where Nigeria fell short with all the efforts in trying to drive down corruption. We're not opening our books enough from their perspective. Well, we'll assess the implementation of the Freedom of Information Act on the show today. Razak Michael Wankor is with me from the CDD. Hi Razak, how are you?
Hello Kimberly, it's good to be here again. Good evening Abuja. It's going to be, it promises to be a fun-packed session today. I'm just looking forward to it and bristling with energy as always.
If you say it's going to be fun-packed, I believe you. You know, I mentioned what we're going to talk about on BuhariMeter, and some people already getting grumbling, like, chill down. The fact that he has his name before doesn't mean you have to get upset before we get started. Come on. All right. But we have an incredible guest with us in the studio who will make it all the more interesting as we discuss this way through the waters of the Freedom of Information Act. We have Mr. Jide Chukwuemeka, the Executive Director, Ethics and Corporate Compliance Institute of Nigeria. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Delighted to have you in the studio with us. So, I did mention the Amnesty International aspect of it. They gave 5 recommendations, and it just seemed like they were talking freedom of information, transparency, let people have access to your books. It tells you how important this is. Yeah?
Yeah.
And are we measuring up?
Well, no, we have not met our mark as a people, as a society. The measure of democracy is how easy it is for citizens to access records and information, and also for citizens to be part of the development of policies and implementation of those policies. A well-informed citizen is that who will be able to contribute to development in the society. So access to information, or as we call it locally here, freedom of information, it's key for democracy to survive. It's very key. But since 2011, when the act was passed, there has been a couple of activities, aimed at ensuring that the citizens actually are able to access the information and records that public institutions have about their activities. So freedom of information, FOI, is key. It's key. We haven't done all we could do on it, but we're on the path to progress.
But before we even launch into the deep, as it were, can we just give a broad, definition to what the Freedom of Information Act is really all about, so that people out there can actually know, okay, this is what the FOIA thing is about. So what exactly is it? What does it entail?
Okay, the FOI Act actually provided the citizens with a right. It gave the citizens, not just citizens, everybody in Nigeria, anybody, whether in Nigeria or out of Nigeria.
Even the pepper seller.
Everybody, the pepper seller, the Okada person, every person, whether in Nigeria or actually out of Nigeria, you can ask questions regarding, yes, even if you're not a citizen of Nigeria. Wow. What it does is that it gives you the right to access information and records about public institutions in Nigeria. And it mandates public institutions to create records, maintain records, ensure that they have records of their own activities, of their own businesses, of their own programs, and everything that they do for the nation. Yes.
So, but I'm sure that there's a caveat that says that as long as those informations are not, as long as that particular information you require does not jeopardize national security, national interest.
Yeah. There are a couple of exemptions.
So, which means you can't just walk up to EFCC and say, EFCC, please, all the records. I need all the records. No. But can you do that now?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
You cannot. There are exemptions. Exemptions include national security and foreign relations. Includes personal information of people. You cannot go and ask for personal information of public workers, public servants. It includes information that the police is using for investigation. So investigative information, investigative activity records, you cannot ask for them.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So for people who probably, to just help expand the conversation even more, for them to get to know a bit more about the Freedom of Information Act, how it works. You write to maybe an agency, organization. It mustn't necessarily. Does this just cover for, say, government agencies alone? Or you can actually do it to a private organization?
Yeah, if a private organization is funded by government money, it becomes a public institution under the Act. If a private organization is doing a public work, for instance, I don't know the name of those guys that collect money on behalf of the federal government.
Collect money?
Yeah, you pay through them. If you're paying... No. There's one organization, BuhariMeter.
Okay.
BuhariMeter is a private company, but it's doing a public service. So you can ask BuhariMeter questions. How much have you collected, for instance, under the FOI Act? They will not say we are not a public institution. So public institutions clearly stated, then private organizations doing public work. Private organizations funded by public funds.
Like the AEDC?
Yes.
Okay.
Private organizations in which the government of the federation or a state has shareholding. Those ones must respond to public requests for information.
And this request should come within 7 days?
No, the request can come anytime.
But not exceeding a setting.
No. Any time at all that you want to make a request, you can make a request. What happens
when they respond to you? That
yes, the response.
The
response has to be within 7 days. If the institution is unable to respond to you within 7 days, they have to give you a notice and seek for extension of time within which to respond. For instance, if you go and ask for all the names of people who have played football for Nigeria from 1900, it may take NFA a long time to do. They may not be able to do it in 7 days. So they may ask you to give them additional 7 days, additional 3 days, which may extend to 7 days. But this is not fight. If a public institution is unable to give you the information you want in 7 days, allow them. Give them another 7 days. Give them 10 more days.
But doesn't that belie the whole point of they can do a go around for you? I mean, you keep transferring and transferring. At the end of the day, you don't get anything done. There's another loophole.
There has to be reasonable time, because we are in this together. Sure. It's the people and the government is the government of the people. We are in it together. So you know what is reasonable. If you can't get your information in 7 days, and they say give me additional 7 days, that is the maximum they can take. But you, who need information, can afford to say, okay, take 10 days. I will come back so time. But please let me have the information.
But is there a repercussion for the institution if they fail to actually provide that information, even though they have it in their coffers, and it's not breaking any rule or
jeopardizing anything or threatening national security?
Is there any repercussion for them? Because what makes them accountable? They can decide, look, I don't want to give this information out, so I'm not giving this information out.
But the law says you can take them to court, yes?
Yes. If an institution fails to provide information you request, you have the right to go to court. And the institution itself has to give you a denial notice to say, we have seen the information, we have this information in our custody, but we are not allowed by law to give you this information because it is one of those exemptions that the law provided for. Sure. Then when they do that, they have fulfilled their own obligations. You can go to court to say, now, they don't want to give me this, and they said it's because of section so and so of the law. The court will not interpret for the two of you whether the law stops them from giving you the information. But the basic understanding is that the FOI Act is a pro-disclosure law. It is the law made specifically to disclose information, not to withhold information. So the law is pro-disclosure. So every public servant is being trained to understand that it is his responsibilities or her responsibility to release information when they have it, if that information does not fall squarely within those exemptions that the law provided for.
I recall vividly it was intense, and it had all kinds of political dimension in analyzing, particularly during Obasanjo administration when he failed to assent that bill, the Freedom of Information Bill there. And people had so much to say. The media was agog talking about it, that, oh, if this is signed, it will enrich our democracy. We have access, accountability, transparency. It will cut down corruption. Corruption will be brought down to the barest minimum. Send it. And they were mounting pressure on Jonathan, and he signed it since 2011. And I'm curious to find out from you, between then and now, how much success have we recorded with this Freedom of Information Act, really?
We are an insatiable people. I can attest to that. I'm one of those people who are continuously insatiable. Number one thing is that before 2007, you cannot access the budget of the Federation. Anywhere. You cannot. But today, it's online. Federal Ministry of Finance, the budget is online. Accountant General's Office, the audit is online. So we have made tremendous progress. The greatest issue Nigerians have has to do with public procurement. Who gets what contract? Who gets awarded, on this year's budget, on last year's budget, and how far have they implemented the contracts? So, with the Bureau of Public Procurement, procurements are open, and procurement information is also online. That's what they call no COPO or no PROCO. I'm not so sure again. But if you go on their website, you will see the information on the who gets what, except security procurement, the Dasuki Lajis. Nobody was not, those ones are saying because it is security, so they won't come. So I can tell you that we have made progress. When President Buhari came on board, you remember the fantastically corrupt summit in London. He also decided to sign on to the Open Government Partnership. And the Open Government Partnership provided for access to information as one of the commitments that Nigeria made. So we are committed to opening up the budget, opening up our activities, opening up all the things regarding government activities. Now, last year, we had 2 budget sessions for town hall meetings by the DG Budget, Benakabeze, one in Lagos, one in Abuja. It wasn't happening before. So on that budget angle, it is happening. On the issue of extractive industry, NATI is doing a wonderful work on that basis. They are opening up the extractive industry sector. So that one too, because oil and gas is our major earner, and we want to know who owns what and how much are we realizing. We still have issues with figures, but so far so good. We can do much better, but we are on the path. The foundations are laid, the pillars are there. It's for us, the citizens, to build on those foundations and the pillars that are there to carry the weight of the building. We haven't built the building yet, but the foundation is laid. The pillars are in place. What we need to do, because unknown to many of us, the Alota people, we no go agree, the capacity of the civil servant to even respond to these information may be lacking. And there may be hindrances too, because the civil servant takes an oath of secrecy upon joining the civil service, you take an oath of secrecy. And freedom of information is totally against an oath of secrecy, but freedom of information is not an oath. We are a people that are religious. So when you take an oath, you take it serious. So that is one of the issues we have.
I wish I could believe you on that. Forgive me for having my reservation. Okay. Yeah, so the foundation and pillars and all of that. Yes. But it shows that, it's a work in progress. There's still ground to cover
a lot of ground.
This. Because not a lot of people are exploiting all of the avenues in terms of using the FOI Act. And not all of the organizations are responding also to the few. You just made, quite a bit of an excuse for them, saying they might not have the capacity to handle it at that point, as at when we want it.
Yes. No, something we forget is that you cannot give what you don't have. For you to have information to give out, it means that you're keeping records.
Yourself.
Record keeping, record management. We do not have one single uniform records management standard in the country.
Data, yeah.
You understand? So how do you assess the information you want to give? First and foremost, the law itself, in section 1, subsection 1, gave the citizens the right to access information. And quickly in section 2, subsection 1 says public institutions must make records, ensure that they have records. Now, do we have a benchmark to guide the public servants on how to create records, how to maintain records, how to access the records, and how to dispose of the records? We don't have that. We've done a couple of work. My organization with the Open Government Partnership at the Federal Ministry of Justice, we try to develop a records management system for the country. And along the line, the academics that we are working with, we couldn't pay them. And they said, we have a first draft, but we're not releasing it until we get the required funds to keep moving. So we can do that. Have records management standards in place. It's something that every serious nation should have. There's even an international standard that can be a guideline, for us to develop our own. So we must have records management standard, uniform, so that the citizen does not go to NTA. It's a different records management system. It goes to FRCM. It's a different records management system. That is one. There is no guidance, citizens' guide, on how to access public information. We do not have. We have developed that one too. It's in process with the Open Government Partnership Secretariat in the Ministry of Justice. The same issue. Where is the funds to pay the academics that are doing the research and finalizing the records, finalizing the instruments? It's not there. Don't forget that civil servants work in accordance with civil service rules. If there is no circular saying do this, they will not do it. They work within their schedule. They don't push the boundaries. It is disruptive in the civil service to be innovative. So innovation is frowned at.
Notice that.
So if there is no instrument that the civil servants can see as binding upon them, we are wasting our time.
Wow, innovation is frowned at, but it makes sense
if
you look at it in the context of how we function with the civil service.
It's always backwards. It's always we believe in things that have been entrenched in how
this is how we
do it. Don't come and disrupt the status quo.
There is
I see it a lot. Even in hospitals.
No, it is. But that is why civil service will continue to survive. Because promotion and advancement comes by being obedient. Every letter I get from a civil servant is, I am directed to. If there is no directive, you will not do it. You're obedient servant. That is the way the civil service was brought up. But we have to, tweak it a bit so that there is certainty and there's also element of progressiveness in what we do. That is the way it is. Those of us in the private sector have to understand how the civil servants work and then help them to move these things that we want to do, these innovations that we want to bring, to move it forward. they will obey if there is high political authority that says do. And high political authority must follow their process. They are a process and procedure people. They are not like us.
Yeah.
If it's not in their schedule, they will not do it. But if the high political authority says, we want you to do this, this is what President Buhari has said we should do. And they will ask you, is there a circular from the head of service? If there is no circular on my table, I will not do it. So is the head of service sleeping? The head of service should issue the circulars. The problem we have now has to do with high political leadership. Because those high political leadership should take the lead. They are not taking the lead.
Indeed. Well, I quite agree with you, because I know that dealing with government agencies, even to bring them into the studio for a show, you have to write letter. NERC, Electricity Regulatory Commission, write a letter. It has to go through this channel. You have to wait it out. Nobody can come, even as a spokesman, to just say some things about metering. And quite a number of them, the ministry, they'll tell you, my PAMSEC or this person has to approve or so on. So, well, apparently, maybe we'll be a tad more understanding, seeing that they work with those rules, and it's a bit regimented for them. We'll take a break, join Bevan for the news, and then we'll come back still assessing the Freedom of Information Act with our guest here in the studio. And please stay with us. Remember, you can tweet, you can also send your thoughts via WhatsApp 0809-99-30137 to reach us via WhatsApp. To tweet, our handle is @NigeriaInfoABJ. Thank you so much for staying with us. We're still assessing the Freedom of Information Act, and just to see how far we've come using this act. Remember, to deal with corruption, which has gone on, with impunity, is to keep our books open. When we make those areas that have been opaque and dark, illuminate it a bit, you'll be able to ask a bit more question because you're armed with information. Now, we did look at the challenge within the civil service. Naturally, there must be some of them, but there's some organizations who respond swiftly when these demands are put through to them. I know there are organizations, I think one of them brought on the show, who would give you a breakdown of these agencies, parastatals, and their level of response to the FOI demand. Some of them consistently for some quarters, they always furnish information, but there are some that are always guilty of not. You start to wonder, so what excuse do you make for those ones who constantly somehow do not? I think, yes, you do have, that, yeah?
Yes.
Let's just see some of them who are...
Well, the Bureau of Public Service Reforms, according to this...
For a while now, they've been number one.
Yeah, they've been number one. But
the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission is coming second here. Even ICPC is seen to have the third ranking in terms of proactive disclosure. Not so good with responsiveness to requests for information, but level of disclosure always quite impressive. Bureau of Statistics, 5th position. Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NATI, which you mentioned, is there. But there are some that you go down.
They've never. I'm sure
the Office of the Auditor General, 175th position out of how many they were done?
Well, in Nigeria, we have close to 880 public institutions, federal public institutions, and Bureau of Public Service Reforms, when Mr. Abba was
Joe Abba
was the DG, he personalized the public request issues. He comes to his phone and he answers them. So for this period, I have this report from PPDC. It was the period Joe Abba was on seat.
So you're saying it might change now that
it has changed. Put a call to them, you will not get the response. You know why? Because Joe Abba, no matter how well he did not make it an institutionalized issue. It was him, not the institution. So that is why we keep talking about building up the institution. Joe Abba meant well, but well-meaning sloppiness is still sloppiness. He did it, he was answering all the requests by himself on his phone, on his laptop. But your phone and your laptop is not the institution. So now, Bureau of Public Service Reforms may not answer because who is their FOI officer? Okay. They have not done what they should do by institutionalizing the FOI process. But others are. We have some who are guilty every day. One of our senior colleagues, Ediatan Ojo, Media Rights Initiative, normally publishes what he calls Hall of Shame. NNPC is always on the Hall of Shame.
Yeah.
NNPC every day will not respond to requests because they felt that they are not a public institution. And when you try to explain to them that they are even the reason why we have FOI, because oil and gas is the most corrupt area in public activities in Nigeria.
And
that is
the least transparent as well.
Is the least transparent. So we have those of them who have decided that they are above the law, and NNPC is above the law. They will never respond.
And they get away with this. I mean, how many cases of organization do we know have dragged them to court?
No, there are ongoing cases. Cases will drag. If you want information, and that is one of the weaknesses we have in our Information Act, the Freedom of Information Act. It should not be that a citizen in Kauranamoda, for instance, Sokoto State, wants an information from NNPC. Look at the strength between the villager in Kauranamoda and NNPC. How can he fight them in court? His lawyer will not even get to the court by the time NNPC gets judgment. I'm not saying, what I have not said. But, the power that NNPC possesses is such that we should have an intermediary. The citizen doesn't have to pay to go to court. In various jurisdictions, in Australia, Canada, South Africa, UK, they have what they call information commissioner. If you request for information and it is not released to you, you go to the information commissioner and report. Free of charge. Courts are not free of charge. Free of charge. And then the information commissioner will summon those whom we have reported. And his decision is final. His decision is binding on the public institution, but not binding on the citizen. Because the citizen can say, no, I don't agree. The citizen will go to court. The public institution cannot say, no, I don't agree. So we are asking the lady who is in charge of Open Government Partnership in Nigeria, Mrs. Juliet Bekako, is developing something that will enable us have an Freedom of Information Ombudsman. An ombudsman to whom, without charge, you can go to. Because for you to think of paying a lawyer, going to court, you're discouraged. So when an NPC says, I will not respond, it is only very rich people that can say, we'll go to court. And that is why we'll need to tweak that act a bit. So that the first port of call is not court. If they refuse to give information, go to the ombudsman that has powers to summon them to say, we'll look at it, please release the information. There are information that people have businesses, government organizations have businesses with foreign agents, foreign companies. And the foreign companies will disclose it in the UK or in the US. But if you ask them to disclose it here in Nigeria, they will say no. You understand? Not knowing that the thing is already online. So those are the things we have, the issues we have. Some are doing well every day. Some are not. I have a case somebody brought to me of Federal Inland Revenue Service. We are on name and shame. Federal Inland Revenue Service, building properties all over the country and refusing to disclose how much they are using to build those offices. Refusing to disclose who gets the contract for those public works. And they're asking us to pay tax. You use my money to build properties and you cannot account to us that these are the people who get the contract and this is how much it's costing. If you generate 1 trillion and you use 2 trillion to generate it, have you made any money for the country? You haven't. How much do you use Federal Inland Revenue Service to generate every 1 naira? If you're using 70 kobo to generate 1 naira, you are not serving us. So those are the things we are asking, people are asking, and they are not responding. Some are responding.
But can we say how many people do you? I remember you made a call just before the show started, just to find out how many people has. Can we have that on here right now?
Yeah,
so people can know.
I spoke to the
volume of request made.
No volume of request made. Every public institution is required to submit a report on before the 1st of March, 29th of February, every year, to the Attorney General's office. Attorney General of the Federation. Consistently for the past 4 years, we've had less than 60 reports out of 880 public institutions.
Wow.
Yes. But the Desk Officer General, Mr. Benjamin Okolo, who is the head of the unit, with his own resources, has been going around to public institutions, asking them to, bring in your report. This is the format for the report, and all whatnot. So I put a call to him to say how many. He said the people who beat the deadline were 70 this year. So there is progress. Those who came in late after was another 30. So giving a total of 100. I mean, 100. I can count 100 on the fingers of one hand and say have enough to do work.
Well said.
It's unbelievable.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. So, but that is a progress from less than 60 to about 100. And this is because the desk officer is the one pursuing them. There is no sanction in the act. If there is a sanction, then people will sit up. There is no high-level commitment. If the head of service does a circular and says, if your institution does not submit the report by 29th of February, your budget will not be approved, people will sit up. So, sanction, yes, and then administrative management. The head of service is not managing it. She needs to be trained.
But I understand even that if an officer is found to be guilty, an officer of the state is found to be guilty of not having given out this information, is actually liable to a jail sentence, to a prison term.
Yes, if he falsifies the information.
Okay.
If he falsifies the records.
Okay.
There is a penalty.
Well, let me take you back.
Conviction.
Let me take you back to when we discussed this thing earlier, and I was saying that the problem I feel is the fact that there are too many loopholes in this particular act. I said it from before, and you were saying that because I said, look, some of the states they've not even they've not taken to this act at all. I think it's just Ekiti and Lagos that has actually been very active in terms of implementing this particular act. And I said, look, the argument is that the federal structure, some of the states feel like, look, this institution, some institutions that are owned by the states feel like this act does not concern them. I mean, they are state-owned institutions. What does the federal government have to do with them? And I said this, and you said that the problem is there's a crack, and the problem is from the inception of federalism itself in Nigeria. Can you please shed light on that particular
before I
argument?
go there, please, fellow Nigerians, we have 36 states. If every state says federal laws do not apply, where does federal law apply?
Exactly.
Okay.
Is it in Cameroon? So we have 36 states, and the federal law applies nationwide. A couple of days back, the Court of Appeal decided in the case of Martins Alo against the Speaker of Ondo State that the Freedom of Information Act applies to every state in Nigeria. That is the current law of Nigeria today.
So with no story of it's not domesticated.
You cannot even domesticate a Nigerian law. It's not foreign. You domesticate something that is foreign.
We do have laws that you have to. Child Rights Act not domesticated in a lot of states.
The word is not domesticate, because something that is Nigerian is already domestic. So you cannot be talking if it is an international act, international law that Nigeria signs. You can begin to talk about domestication. But if the National Assembly that we are voted in from the states makes law,
you're saying it's automatically
does the senator have
it?
Yes, that is what it is.
It doesn't.
If you make your own
that's
law,
what
that's
it
not
should
the reality.
be.
That's
not the reality.
In that case, Child Rights Act would have been applicable in all the states. The VAP Act, the same thing. But
that's not what we see.
Excuses.
Yeah, they make those excuses because they don't want to. They don't want to do the right thing. They don't want to do the right thing. Even if a state makes a law today on Freedom of Information Act, if it conflicts with the National Federal Freedom of Information Act, the Federal Freedom of Information Act supersedes. So it tells you that if it can supersede, it's already seeding.
Yeah.
Before you make your own for it to supersede. Please, seeding is not a word in the English dictionary. It's a Nigerian word. So, going back to what you asked, the government we have in Nigeria did not develop organically. If you remember our history, government was imposed on us by conquest. When the British conquered and they imposed their rulership over us. And then our politicians inherited government from the British people. And they continue to rule over us. So for us, the indigenes of Nigeria, it is not our government. Even though we go through the process of elections, when they get into office, the first thing they do is that government business is not the people's business. And they become completely alienated from the people. So that is our history. That is how governments came into be. It did not evolve organically. It wasn't us agreeing to form a government like we do in our communities, from the family to the immediate village to the larger community. You have people who decide things. That wasn't how government came to be in Abuja. He moved from Lagos to Abuja and it was imposed on everybody.
And you think that has a bearing on the fact that the FOI Act is a bit lacks
the fundamental thing is that the government is alienated from the people. So government workers feel that they are doing you a favor when they give you information about government.
Yes, I get that sense a lot.
You understand? They feel that it's a favor. It is not for you, but let me show you. You know?
Yeah.
But it is changing. When Mrs. Iwala came in finance, she was publishing allocations. Nobody was doing it before. So we should build on these things that have been there. Impunity is what we need to do away with. People cannot get away with disobeying the law. There are two processes of accessing information according to the law. Either you request for the information or the information is proactively put there
displayed
for you.
Yeah.
That is what the law says. Section 2, subsection 3 of the Act says, publish all these things listed under here. They are not publishing it. And what we have been doing in the trainings we give to public institutions is to say, if you keep receiving requests, how much did it cost for you to pay salaries last month? And you get another request on that. Kukuma put it on the internet.
On your website.
So that the people will just say it without coming to ask you. So when you do that, you have less interface with the people. Nigerians really are not troublesome. If you put this information across on the website, they will go there, they will see it, and they will go home and rest.
Because you wonder why some big organization their website hasn't been updated in forever.
Nothing. There's some I check and I'm like, what are we doing? Don't they have a social media or a public relations team? And there was even one I saw that it was porn. I don't want to mention the name. It was porn that was on the website.
If you type their website, because somebody has hijacked it now. They were not doing anything.
They've not been
maintaining it. Someone else has.
Some of these issues have to do with funding. Clearly.
Funding?
Yes, it has to do with funding. We must appreciate that the public institutions do not receive enough funds for the good things to be done. There are fundings for
inflate some of these figures, because you see small businesses, small private organizations, they can successfully manage their website and feed us with information. So if you're talking about government agencies, sometimes you say maybe it's something for 500, they'll put 5 million. How would they not have funding challenge?
No, that is why we are here as citizens to engage as we do with the budget. Remember the Ijaniki Girls Secondary School, the Federal Government College in Janiki, where they say they want to do fencing. It was on the budget. It was online. And people in Janiki said, no, there's a fence. You understand? They took picture of the fence and they sent it across to us and we disseminated it. So it is for the citizens. If somebody says it is going to cost us 1 billion to bring in 10 Peugeot cars, I will say, don't worry, I'm selling Peugeot. I will give you for so amount. And everybody will see it. But the problem is that you still publish it, you still bring it out, and they do not change because there is no sanction. There is no effective penalties. If I may use the word, there is no reinforcement, whether positive or negative. There is no reinforcement. That is why they get away with a couple of things that is mind-boggling.
Indeed. Well, let's run for a very quick commercial break and then we'll open the phone lines and get to hear from you via telephone. So please stay with us. have to do this, if not the
I know.
traffic.
You already called.
Yeah,
That's what you called. I
Just in
know
case,
that they talked to you.
should it be that possibly, maybe you
So
want
you
a
did not
discount
do
on
it.
movie and
That
event
it was
tickets?
on your-
Buy them on
Yeah.
Alert Lifestyle Shop. Sign up on Alert today.
Alert, powered by Wemabank.
Mama, Dettol soap na 100 naira now.
Buy Dettol soap, Ovunga protection for 100 naira.
I caught it first. No, I touched the bucket.
We'll be back on in a minute, 30 seconds.
I called it
Let's
first.
just take
Ladies,
2 or 3
calm
phone
down. I
calls.
happen to capture the moment with my Samsung Galaxy S9 on super slow-mo mode. It's 4 times slower than regular slow-mo and will tell us the real story behind the moment.
You see, I told you. I touched it first. Don't bring that back. Thanks, dude. You and your Samsung Galaxy S9 saved the day. I've heard lots of super amazing stuff about the Galaxy S9, like the personalized augmented reality emojis.
I'm sure you've also heard about its Dolby Atmos surround sound that gets you totally immersed in a world of your own.
Wow, I can't wait to get mine.
I also can't wait to get your number on my Samsung Galaxy S9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can imagine. Still.
I need to rest.
How long are you?
This time I'll be gone for 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
We'll manage. We'll manage. Just 3 weeks.
3 weeks, just 3
Call
weeks.
us on
I'll
0700
discuss
I
with
contact.
Coach.
That is
Well, that means you
0700
have to
2442
tell yourself.
668228 or visit www.icoplc.com to learn more. ICO
You're gonna be here,
Insurance,
you're
your
going to
stable
travel.
friend. Yesterday, today, and always.
Have some fun, right?
I need a. I've been looking forward to it for a while now.
Where are you going?
Well, I was
Dettol soap na 100 naira now.
Buy
going
Dettol soap, Ovunga protection
and
for
then friend is
100
getting
naira.
married in the Gambia. So we'll touch down there too.
Good.
When I get back.
Don't worry.
We're not in short stay.
We'll be scoping
But
you.
don't, no, it's not scoping.
As it's going to be your social media.
Alright, let's go. Okay, this is the time to hear from you. Let's hear your thoughts on our discussion so far as we looked at the Freedom of Information Act. And for those who are in the public sector, you might also share with us a bit of your challenge, if there's any, and other aspect of it that you think we haven't quite touched on that you want to draw attention to. Please feel free to bring it up. 094600951, 08095974 0803-123-0293. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I greet your guests. My name is Austin.
All right, welcome, Austin.
Yeah, let me ask your guests. Well, when they were talking about getting order from court, the demand for information from any government or sector, it sounds as if it's not with us in this country. How many court orders have been obeyed by this government, more especially? How many? And you see, when they're talking about going to court, court will beat their order. Another thing is for the people in the question to respect the court order. That's why our president of the today has not been able to tell Nigeria how much is spent abroad, including my own money, because I know how much I pay annually. I'm at home now. Thank God I came in my not life. Don't know how many minutes I had. You know? So a lot of things it's going on in the country. When we propose solutions, people call us well. And some people know that it is true, but for the fact that for their own selfish interest, the elite mostly, because these people, the elite, it's not only them, but the poor people are the ones suffering it, and they are still the ones supporting the elite that are enjoying our collective wealth.
All right, Austin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, let's hear from a few more people. If we can take 2 more thoughts from you on the Freedom of the Information Act, that would be nice. Hello.
Hello, Kim.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah. Good evening to the guests.
Good evening.
I'm just tuning in now.
What's your name, sir?
Michael.
Okay, Michael.
Are we talking about freedom of information or what?
Freedom of Information Act, yes. But you haven't been listening to us.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything to talk.
Thank you, because you haven't been listening to us. Really. And then someone here, Chinedu, says, I think there are lots, the aspect of the Freedom of Information Act that they need to address. I don't think if there are no punishment that any agency or government parastatal or even the government will take it seriously. A lot of this information should be out there, easily accessible, not fighting and dragging them to court before they finish you with this information.
Yes.
I quite agree that that's one area that we need to address. If not, this whole talk about fighting corruption would never get it right if there's no transparency in that aspect. So he's saying, give us this information. There are some of them that we don't need to come badgering you to get them before you actually have access to them.
Clearly.
I disagree that fund is the problem of public organizations not maintaining their website. It pains me that the university I graduated from last 6 years still has the picture of the VZ that graduated us. It's funny the fact that 2 VCs have come and gone before the present one, Iffy boy. Those are some of the things. People have gone, and then 2 VCs back, and then nothing has happened to the website. So he's saying that, would you blame this one on fund, paucity of fund now, or just people are not very creative and
you know when we started, we tried to X-ray the mindset of the civil servant. It's somebody's function, it's somebody's schedule to ensure that the information on the university of all places should be able to create and maintain data. It should be able to bring out information. It's a place of learning. So the person who is in charge of maintaining that website should be sacked. That's sanctions. But if you go to sack him, you have to go through the process. The civil service process, the punitive administrative measures. And if within that measure he's found not culpable, there's nothing you could do. Maybe the university didn't budget for websites to start with. And he's not going to use his fingers to do that. So the important thing is for us to engage, find out who is this, and then some of us will sue. Even if it is painful to pay a lawyer, and there are some lawyers who can take this up free on pro bono basis. It's when we take a couple of organizations to court that they tend to sit up. We don't want citizens to be burdened with fees and charges before they get information, or going through the judiciary before they get information. But when it becomes unbearable, we have to sue. I have taken a couple of institutions to court. But eventually, when they begin to come to court, I found out that it's better for us to settle quickly and get information. And I went to the Ministry of Justice and said, let us settle with these people so that they can give us the information that we want. So that is it. It is painful, really, because we have not progressed as much as we should because of lack of... one thing is to have freedom of information. The other thing is to have access to that. I even prefer that we call it access to information, so that you have access to it. It may be free, but you lack access to it.
Indeed.
That's the problem we have.
All right, here he says, Kim, when I think of Nigeria, tears run down my eyes. Okay, that's someone else. And here also, Freedom of Information Act. I'm grateful to God that at least we have a law that supports it. It's left for us now, civil society organization, Nigerians, to ensure that it is implemented all round and that this is respected. And the organizations need to also know the importance of this. Some of them don't have a desk or someone to attend to people when they come for things like this. This is Shagun's perspective. That some of the organizations might not even have a desk officer that attends to FOI demands.
That's true. That's true. The man I referred to as the desk officer general of the Federation, Mr. Benjamin, who is in charge of the Freedom of Information Unit at the Federal Ministry of Justice, has been going round. Now he has collected about 287 He has established about 287 desk officers in various ministries, departments, and agencies on his own. On his own, because he's the person there. If he leaves and the next person comes and there is no such passion or doesn't have enough funds to fuel his car and run around, we may still have a problem. But thank God we have that 200 and something that will begin to train. We'll do trainings, begin to train them, get them sensitized on what they should do. But if you do all the sensitization and all the training and he gets there and they send him to Nkazaragamu in Borno State, how does that help us? So it has to be institutionalized. So that whether Mr. A comes or Mr. B comes, there's a bit of institutional memory that he reads up and he immediately begins to flow. We'll need our senior civil servants, permanent secretaries, the head of service himself or herself, directors to be trained. They are not trained on this and they don't know it. And you cannot lead if you don't have the knowledge. Indeed. That's one of the problems we have.
All right. Well, I think we have to wind down at this point, and just want to appreciate our guest, Mr. Jedani Chukwuemeka, who is the Executive Director, Ethics and Corporate Compliance Institute of Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Razak?
Well, Kimberly, it's been fun as usual. We'll do it again. Same time, same station.
Yes. All right, Abuja, don't touch your dial. There's still more to come. Stay with 95.1 Nigeria Info. Thank you. So much. I say it's BC. That was very funny.
But that is the truth. Yeah. Kimberly, thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly, thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly, thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly, thank you.
Thank you.